Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Looks almost like we may have a guest over here as well. Welcome. And tonight, it's almost a continuation of what I spoke about last week. And we're talking about inflammation, amongst other things, inflammation, weight management, all those fun things that people get concerned about at this time of the year. So let me share my screen and I will get into it and explain more about what I mean. Come on. Okay, right. So just shrink this a little bit over here. So there is one key to balanced inflammation, the immune system, and your mind. That sounds like a bit of an interesting story, don't you think? So I've titled this Happy New Year and Happy New You, because we are at that time of the year when most people are starting to look at the new year and new habits and new revelations and resolutions, etc. Which don't always stick, but it's always good to plan. The world is hoping for a brighter 2022 as it emerges from the challenges of 2021 and 2020. It's been an interesting couple of years. We're all hoping to be our resilient best to face the future. And there's never been a better time for taking charge of personal healthy lifestyle targets to achieve this optimal health and wellness. Maintaining good health requires giving our body daily high-quality nutrition to support a healthy metabolism. If you can get this from your diet, that's great. But sadly, the vast majority of people are not able to get this high-quality nutrition from their diet. Another key factor that cannot be ignored is the importance of maintaining a healthy weight. As you've seen over the past series that I've done, weight management is one of your keys to good health. The evidence is clear that obesity and associated low-level inflammation can have an enormously negative impact on so many aspects of our health, including our immune system performance and brain function. Everything is tied together in a very intricate manner. We live in fascinating little machines and microbiomes. This is too important to ignore as we see that the ever-increasing figures for overweight and obesity around the world are threatening our health by accelerating the onset of chronic lifestyle-related conditions. Today, this is according to the Global Nutrition Report in 2020, today, 1 in every 9 people in the world is hungry, and 1 in every 3 is overweight or obese. Those are some scary statistics over there. Optimal nutrition, which means high quality and balanced nutrition, is undoubtedly required for building resilience, but many of us continue to miss out. And we're not just talking about those who are overweight, we're talking about those who are underweight and undernourished as well. And sadly, a lot of people can be overweight, but very much undernourished. Last year, there was a new report which presented the latest data and evidence on the state of nutrition around the globe. Clearly, undernutrition remains an area of great concern in many parts of the world, to the extent that nutrient deficiencies continue to cause serious problems as well as stunted growth in children. And it starts with our children. Conditions like iron deficiency or iron deficiency anemia are persistent, affecting around 22.8% of the global population. And vitamin A and iodine deficiencies also continue to be highly prevalent. The other side of the spectrum is termed overnutrition, where there is an excess of food and kilojoules compared to needs. The Global Nutrition Report cites the figures for overweight and obesity as overweight, including obesity, has increased from 31.7%, or 609.8 million people, to 39.2%, or 1.02 billion in women, and that's in women, and in men from 29.7%, 560 million, to 38.5, 984.6 million. Those are some scary stats. This means that 2 billion of the world's population are overweight or obese. Look around, see how many people you can see on a daily basis when you go to the shops, maybe at work, who are overweight or obese. It's scary. These overweight and obesity figures are staggering and describe the dramatic worsening of the situation during the last 2 decades. Forecasts suggest that the trends are set to continue, with obesity predicted to affect 50% of the global population by 2030. That is just a very few short years away. So the importance of balanced nutrition. Even when we exceed our ideal weight, we are often poorly nourished, and nutritional scientists have often reported on the widespread nutrient inadequacies in industrialized countries. Our typical obesogenic environment, with poor quality foods, which are rich in sugar and poor quality fats, highly processed and high in kilojoules, coupled with sedentary lifestyle, continues to fuel the growing obesity epidemic around the world. You have a look at those countries where there's not a lot of wealth, let's put it that way, and not a lot of junk food, and they have to walk or cycle. See how many of those people are actually overweight or obese. The widespread micronutrient inadequacies and deficiencies and low intakes of healthy fats, whole grains, and fruits and vegetables are literally driving the epidemic of overweight, obesity, and associated chronic conditions, because overweight and obesity on its own isn't always an issue. That's the associated chronic conditions, diabetes, hypertension, all those sort of things that are causing problems. Now, the Near Life Scientific Advisory Board, or the SAB, have always recognized the difficulty that many of us face in achieving a regular and balanced supply of all key nutrients and valuable elements of whole foods called phytonutrients. Yet these nutrients are critical for optimal health and wellness. They are also vital to the optimal function of the immune system. Literally thousands of our body's biochemical processes for growth and maintenance, as well as energy generation, depend on a steady and balanced supply of all nutrients and phytonutrients. And if you look at the average diet, those things are missing. Therefore, more than a decade ago, the Neolife SAB formulated ProVitality, which is a groundbreaking 4-in-1 product designed to fill critical gaps in both nutrients and phytonutrients. And with our supplements, remembering it's not just another vitamin. These are actually food in a concentrated format, which means that they are significantly more bioavailable and user-friendly. So maintaining a healthy weight and waistline. Why does it matter? While body image and feeling good about ourselves certainly make a difference to our general mood, there are very well documented and serious health risks associated with long-term overweight or obesity, particularly abdominal obesity, and that's that spare tire around the middle. Excess weight gain can disturb the body's overall balance by triggering a type of low-level and persistent inflammation, resulting in the body struggling to keep blood glucose and blood fats in check. This resultant dysfunctional state is called metabolic syndrome and is characterized by abdominal obesity, as well as high blood pressure, hyperglycemia, which means high sugar, and high triglycerides. Currently, 20% of the world's population are said to be affected by this syndrome, And if you look at the stats, this is going to grow significantly in the not too distant future. In turn, metabolic syndrome is linked to the increasing likelihood of developing cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, as well as other chronic conditions. So these are your figures to be looking at. But if in ladies you're more than a 35-inch waist and men more than a 40-inch waist, you're going to be in trouble. Abdominal or visceral obesity is considered the main risk factor for developing metabolic syndrome. This is measured as waist size above 40 inches or 102 centimeters for men and 35 inches or 88 centimeters for women. Abdominal fat is the deep fat that lies between the abdominal organs and should not be confused with subcutaneous fat, which is that fat under the skin, which can be pinched. So if you take a handful of your tummy and see how much of that you can do, you'll be able to differentiate over there. Fat accumulated in the lower body, or the pear shape, is subcutaneous, while fat in the abdominal area, the classic apple shape, is mostly visceral. And that's the sort of figures that you're looking at over there. The tendency to accumulate fat around the waistline is influenced by several factors, including hereditary and hormones. Now, you can't change your genes, but you can change a lot of the other factors. After menopause, women have an increased tendency to shift from pear to apple, increasing abdominal fat. And it's much more than fat storage tissue. It is active adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is known as the fat storage tissue, but it also plays an important role as a very active endocrine organ. Did you know that? More than 600 different substances known as adipokines, apologies if the pronunciation is incorrect, are produced by the adipose tissue cells or adipocytes. Now, adipose means fat. Adipokines are important regulatory substances such as hormones, cytokines, and growth factors. Leptin and adiponectin are the most well-known adipokines, and these two play a central role in signaling to our brain whether we are hungry or not. And we can trick our brains into thinking we're not hungry, or we are hungry even more. These adipokines also work as important signals to the immune system and influence the inflammatory balance. And as we have been finding out just recently, our immune system is vitally important, specifically at this time. The activity of adipose tissue as a finely tuned endocrine organ may be disturbed when we accumulate too much abdominal fat with important negative health impacts. Abdominal obesity is associated with a variety of chronic conditions, namely type 2 diabetes, osteoarthritis, some cancers, cognitive or mood issues, sleep apnea, and cardiovascular disease. So obesity is a catalyst for persistent low-level inflammation, otherwise known as meta-inflammation. Our ability to store fat can be very beneficial in the short term because it provides energy stores when food is scarce. You think of a camel's hump. When it is full of food and water, the hump is very prominent. Once it's gone through the desert for a couple of weeks without having had any food and water, that hump is very flabby. And we work on a similar system. However, in the long term, the expansion of fat stores changes the balance of adipokine signals to a more pro-inflammatory state, which puts a strain on our metabolism, creating a persistent low-level inflammation, which in turn may accelerate the development of other chronic conditions, because inflammation is your body's response to a problem that shouldn't be there. This persistent state of inflammation, which has recently been coined meta-inflammation, is the result of metabolic stress due to the body having to deal with continued excess of fats and sugars. So we're always putting a strain on the system. The precise order of events is still being clarified, but it is thought that the excess levels of fats and sugars results in oxidative stress, oxidative meaning rust in the case of metal, but we call it oxidation, and the production of reactive oxygen species, which harm fat cells, causing them to die off and release their stored, their stored fatty acids. Excuse me for a sec. So there you can see what your adiponectin cells look like. And when they give off all these other big fancy words over there, which we won't get into, that leads to inflammation. This then acts as a signal and triggers a call to action from patrolling and resident immune cells, which multiply in numbers and infiltrate the adipose tissue. Meta-inflammation is particularly harmful to the physiological mechanisms that help to control weight and to the response and balance of the immune system. So if your body is fighting this inflammation, it's not always ready to fight a virus that might pop into your system, for instance. It occurs in several of our body's organs and tissues, such as the liver, pancreas, muscles, and brain. And it may cause a lot of sensitivity to insulin, leading to diabetes. There is now overwhelming evidence that inflammation is directly associated with insulin resistance. And that means you have diabetes. So abdominal obesity may unbalance the immune system. A lesser known consequence of gaining those extra kilos around the central area and the resultant low-level meta-inflammation is the impact it may have on our immune system, the balance and overall performance thereof. So if your body is fighting something over here and a virus comes in over here, all the resources that it should be using to instantly fight the virus are now sitting over here working on the inflammation. In obesity, expanding adipose tissue attracts immune cells, creating a more pro-inflammatory environment. A particular type of immune cell, the macrophage, which is a specialized type of white blood cell which regulates other immune cells, increases dramatically in numbers and starts to produce a range of cytokines which are more pro-inflammatory. And this is known as a cytokine storm. This is considered to be an activation of the innate immune system. The macrophage seems to respond as if they are defending the body against an invader where we have excess fat. So your body is being conned. And meta-inflammation impacts the brain because your brain is fat. Recent science has been probing the connection between obesity-associated low-level meta-inflammation and the increased risk of developing age-related cognitive decline, vascular dementia, mild cognitive impairment, mood disorders, and even Alzheimer's disease. It is now emerging that the disturbances in the levels of the adipokines, leptin, and adiponectin may play a role as mediators of the problems in regions of the brain, such as the hypothalamus and hippocampus. These are the areas where memories are formed. This is a fascinating field for future research and studies investigating the role of dietary components such as polyphenols and fats in modulating the inflammatory effect, modulating the inflammatory effects, and are set to feature prominently. So we need to lose that belly fat and get into shape the right way. And my apologies for any guests on here, but we are talking Neolife because the reason being Neolife scientists have done the research and are continuing with the research, working with food and turning them into supplements. With much of our biology, inflammatory forces, and disturbing metabolic signals working against us, we need all the help we can get to ensure successful weight management. As part of the Neolife family and community, you can be assured of the very best support. Balanced nutritional products, which are formulated according to the latest science and clinically proven to work. On top of that, the Neolife community provides a wide network of social support and education about nutrition and other beneficial lifestyle factors. Not only is it designed to be the perfect start to your morning, but Neolife Shake is also part of a highly effective weight loss program. By replacing 2 meals a day with the Neolife Shake, you can lose weight, improve your body mass index, and reduce your weight and hip measurements in just 12 weeks. And we saw this because what I spoke about last week was and brought in the fact that this is a pure protein, and protein is what helps us. So, good news, quality nutrition and lifestyle changes help. Lifestyle changes can make a tremendous difference in our quest to take charge of our health and become our resilient best. A well-balanced diet is essential and obviously the key. And due to the limitations of our typical diets, there is a great need for high-quality nutritional supplements. Many different nutrients are known to play a role in balancing inflammation and supporting the immune response. These were reviewed recently, and the roles of 12 key essential vitamin and minerals were emphasized. And these were vitamins A, B6, B12, folate, C, D, E, zinc, iron, selenium, magnesium, and copper. As research in the field of immune-supporting nutrition or immunonutrition advances, we are likely to see roles identified for all the known essential vitamins and minerals. Dietary fats and fatty acids play a particularly important role as they may influence the overall inflammatory balance of immune cell membranes, a feature which determines how these cells are able to respond to a threat or a challenge. And did you know that our omega-3 salmon oil has undergone clinical tests, human clinical tests, with astounding results? We won't get into that tonight. For example, EPA and DHA, both part of the omega-3 fatty acid family, give rise to inflammation-resolving and protective substances called resolvins, protectins, and maricins. Sometimes scientists like to use simple words for simple things. Neolife's own clinical intervention study with Salmon Oil Plus elegantly demonstrated a 68% reduction of inflammatory markers after just 8 weeks of supplementation. This was quite remarkable. Equally exciting in this area is the substantial evidence accumulating from human clinicals regarding the positive effects of dietary polyphenols and other bioactive phytonutrients in combating inflammation and supporting the immune system. And I can personally attest to how effective the salmon oil is as an anti-inflammatory. The tremendous benefits of exercise. As most people will know, if you know me, I have become a very big fan of parkrun. Parkrun started for me because I knew I had to do something, and it was a challenge, and it was an exercise I felt I could do, even though I didn't think I could run. And it's become quite almost a drug, but it's something I look forward to, because even though like this Saturday was tremendously hot, you feel amazingly good after a good run or even just a rapid walk. And it doesn't have to be 5 kilometers. Evidence shows that one of the most important lifestyle changes for the prevention of many chronic diseases is exercise. Another simple exercise: park your car as far away from the mall entrance as you can and walk in. Don't park in the disabled parking bay and stroll in. Evidence shows that regular and consistent exercise reduces abdominal obesity and results in favorable changes in body composition. Once again, I'll relate to parkrun. There was an amazing story of a couple up in Johannesburg who also committed to doing this. They were both grossly overweight, and they started off by walking. After a year, they had both lost, I can't remember the exact figures, but it was in excess of 50 kilos each, and they were feeling amazing. And all they did was parkrun. Routine exercise also has been shown to improve feelings of well-being and enhance the mood while calming anxiety and stress. And that I can very much attest to. Routine exercise appears to impact specific neurotransmitters and other neurologically feel-good compounds in the brain. So stress, inflammation, and our immune response can be positive and negative. I'm going to try and spin through this a little bit quicker. Our response to an acute or short-term stress is known as the fight or flight response, and it is one of nature's most basic defense mechanisms that enables us to escape from a threatening situation or immediate danger. This type of stress response increases stress hormone production to the benefit of our cardiovascular and muscular systems, making us stronger and able to react to the threat. Problem comes when it stays there and it becomes chronic. It also works as a positive force on our immune system response. In contrast, however, long-term chronic stress interferes with the body's ability to turn off the immune system's production of inflammatory substances, and immune cells become desensitized to the effects of the stress hormone called cortisol. Chronic or long-term stress can decrease immunity by decreasing the immune cells' numbers and function. We need to get a healthy quota of sleep as well. Sleep quality is vital to overall restoration and recovery functions. Sleep loss has been shown to result in disturbances to metabolism, such as impaired glucose tolerance, decreased insulin sensitivity, increased evening concentrations of the stress hormone cortisol, increased levels of ghrelin, and decreased levels of leptin, and increased hunger and appetite, which is where people get up at midnight to go for that proverbial midnight snack. The balance is key. 2020 and 2021 was filled with challenges that unbalanced the lives of countless people, which we all know, and we can probably mention a few names of people that we know whose lives were completely unbalanced. Resilience is more important than ever and is necessary to regaining a healthy, balanced life. And it's doable. It's possible. My suggestion is not on your own. Find a friend, find a group, but do something. And once again, I will talk about parkrun. The reason I enjoy it is because of the camaraderie and the group encouragement of people out on the track. I do it to others, makes me feel good, and others do it to me, makes them feel good and me feel good. So there's always pluses. One silver lining to a global health pandemic is that many people have become more aware of their health status and are actively finding ways to improve their lifestyles and thus their health over the long term. It is never too late to change your health. If you are chronically sick, make a plan, do something, even if it's to take one little step. There's an amazing story of a lady in the States who she was living on oxygen chronically, grossly obese, hadn't been able to get out of, she was permanently in a wheelchair, hadn't been able to leave her home in years. And somebody introduced her to Neolife, and she started taking it slowly but surely. And within a couple of months, she was able to actually get up out of her wheelchair for the first time in many years. She carried on. She was encouraged by this. She carried on. And it was about a year later, I think, she was able to ditch her wheelchair permanently. When you look at her, she is still overweight. She is still classified as obese, but she's no longer on chronic oxygen. She's no longer in a wheelchair and has been able to travel around the world for the first time in her life, purely because she took that first step of changing her health. And all it was in the beginning was changing her diet. And she has a whole list of other medical issues that are chronic problems that she'll quite probably never get out of. But her life is a 180-degree change from what it had been, just by changing one or two little things. Overweight and obesity, especially abdominal obesity, have a negative health effect that are becoming impossible to ignore. Meta-inflammation may not be noticeable right away, but its insidious long-term health effects unbalances the entire body, including the immune system. There is a lot of research in the works to discover all the mechanisms in play, but there is already proven evidence for ways to help prevent and fight inflammation. And a balanced lifestyle is key. Balance in nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management are all necessary as part of an optimal lifestyle and will help the body remain to its resilient best. So it's not just diet, it is a lot of factors. And if you're watching this recording and you feel that you're needing help, and you're needing a bit of guidance, please talk to somebody, anybody who is on this talk tonight. Have a chat to them. If you know them, if you recognize them, talk to them. There are ways to change, but you will need that support. That is the end of my presentation tonight. Stop sharing. Anybody have any questions or comments? We've got 3 minutes left.
Oh, thank you very much. That was fantastic, Sean.
Thank you. Some proverbial food for thought.
Thank you very much, Sean.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Sean.
No
You
problem.
really put a lot of effort into that one. I wonder if there's any hope for me. Anyway, I'll be reading the notes again.
There's always hope,
There's
John.
always hope. Are we going to see you at Parkrun?
Yeah.
Is that
Anyway,
Sean? Sean, is your parkrun on? Is your
Yes.
parkrun going?
It started,
Oh,
the first one started on Saturday.